And welcome to those who are here to our new venue. We're trying something different because we had some concerns about hearing the names in our previous spot. So thank you for finding us here. We were concerned that people were relevant. But we're glad to do it. Well, my name is Paul Adams, and I am the no longer director, past director, or director of the Science Map Education Institute. And this is what science camp? Okay.
First one this year.
First one this year.
There we go.
And it's about 91. The 91st Science Cafe. We are doing a countdown looking to 100 next fall. So we'll look at that. But we are, again, putting up interesting topics, things that are pertinent, is that Glenn McNeil, who's the interim dean of College of Health and Behavioral Sciences, I never do get that right, and volunteered to be our first one to take us off here and, with different food and all. We thought it'd be a great thing to do. And I'll read a little bit here about it. The College of Health and Behavioral Sciences. You want me to read that?
Oh, I don't care. I'll just read it with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you read it. I'll just read it.
The College of Health and Behavioral Sciences is home to challenging and exciting degree programs in the fields of allied health, communication sciences and disorders, health and human performance, nursing, psychology, and social work. With over 2,000 undergrad and grad students, the department offers programs to prepare students for careers in some of the fastest growing occupations in the United States. But shameless advertisement for 4 days. So yes, somebody wants to do
yes.
But with that, let's welcome Glenn for coming up tonight and his topic about the science of eating. So
okay, just give that to Karen. Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, good. That plans. I do want to point out that Mr. Glenn McNeil is not here. I spell my name with one N. Okay, not two, so you have a substitute this evening, in essence. Yeah, no, happens all the time, which is all right. So, Science Cafe, it's food. That's kind of what it's all about. And not just in here, anywhere we go, it's about food. So, what I want to do tonight is just kind of talk a little bit about food and why we pick the types of foods we pick to eat, what we eat, what directs us in that direction, and what we see. So, if you've been around me before, we're not going to talk about nutrition, okay? We're not going to talk about how to cook something. We're just going to talk about food, all right? And the reasons that we tend to pick on that, okay? So it's the Science Cafe, but we're going to make it mine. So it's my cafe for tonight. I'm just glad you all came. We'll enjoy some time, but it just fits into that. And when you look up science and when you look up cafe and you put them together, we're going to just remodel that definition a little bit. A small restaurant. A cafe is a small restaurant that generally serves snacks and small meals. Okay, that's what a cafe tends to be. And then science is taking a look at facts that we glean from observation and research and putting together, right? From that, the basic definition of science. So what we're going to do tonight, get little bits of information. All right, take those little bits of information based on fact, based on observation, based on the fact that we live this every day. We make food choices every day. We pick foods based upon certain reasons. So we're going to put that touch of life in to what we do with the process and why we select those foods. Relaxed, home-style environment, okay? Conversational manner. Stop me anytime. We go any direction. I'm comfortable, and if I'm not, my assistant is here. My lovely wife is in the back, and we'll just turn it over to her, okay, when it goes some direction we don't really want to go. So let's dig into what we've got here. Okay, this was delicious. Okay, now, does anybody know what that is? It's a soft shell crab. It is a cheeseburger, a bacon cheeseburger, soft shell crab served on tomatoes, fresh lettuce, onions, and spicy dill pickles at some little hole in the wall in New Orleans. Okay, we went down to see my son, and that was there. And when you look at that, I don't know what it tells you, but it tells me delicious. Okay, now, because it has the things I like in it. So from that aspect, what I'm looking at and what I pick in that process, and it's colorful. And it attracts me a little bit because of the colors that go in that process. Okay, so we fit into that process. Now, they always tell me, you're always supposed to give a disclaimer, you know, you have anything involved in this, in any investment or anybody supporting you in this particular group. So here it is. This is the disclaimer. I like food. I eat it because I like it. That's my disclaimer that goes along with this particular process. The pictures and text you see are borrowed from everywhere. All right? When we're all done, if you want the stack of references, I can give you the stack of references, but I borrowed them from everywhere. My phone, my son's phone, my wife's phone, okay, is where I got some. The web, some I have just stored away, all right? And when it's all done, they're just going to go right back there. Okay, so I'm not taking anything, I'm just borrowing things for people to do this process. So let's talk a little bit about foods and why we pick the foods that we pick. One of the aspects that we look at is taste. What is taste? What is taste?
Chemical.
What is taste?
It's a molecule that binds in the receptors on your taste buds,
Taste itself.
and that works with the smell receptors.
Well, you're talking about the process of taste. Okay, we're not going to go that deep. Okay, so who's eating? Okay, what is taste? What do you taste? Salt. Sweet.
Umami.
Okay, umami. What else? Bitter. Okay, 4 primary taste sensations that we deal with. Okay, sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. Okay, now this was the standard taste for the whole time I went through school, a long time, and then somebody came up with a 5th one. Okay, and they came up with the 5th one, and it's umami. All right, so what we do is we take these 5 components and we combine them now with texture, temperature, and odor, and that creates flavor. All right, we seek flavors. It's not so much that we seek something that's salty, we seek something that has an aroma or a flavor to it that we can identify, and maybe it has a little bit of salty taste to it, all right? Maybe it has a little bit of sour taste to it, but that flavor is what we're really looking at, really trying to get to when we do this process. So we look at flavor. Remember this picture? Your tongue. Okay, we always used to talk about the tongue and the taste zones on the tongue. Okay, and for, again, long time, this is what was always seen as the taste zones for the tongue. Sweet taste, always at the initial point, at the beginning of the tongue. And you got to remember, sweets, not just candies. All right, I mean, these are sweet pickles, these are grapes, these are fruits, these are vegetables, a lot of different things that sweet is. Most of the time, we equate sweet to what? One thing. Sugar, okay? Because that's sort of how it's defined in the food process. Sucrose, table sugar is that's the comparison. Everything is, if you go buy an artificial sweetener, it's 70 times, 100 times, 250, 1,000 times sweeter than sucrose, or it's 70% sweeter than sucrose. So, you know, that's the goal we always look at with there, because we all recognize that. Okay, in terms of what that particular flavor is. And then you always indicated that sour tastes were on the sides of the tongue. Okay, in this taste process and what we see. And whether it is lemons and limes that give you bitterness, that give you that tartness, that astringency in terms of sourness, or if it's whatever those little candies are, gummy bears, sour what? Yeah, okay, that sounds good. My youngest son loved those things. He'd always give them to his mother, and she didn't like them very much in terms of that process. But that's an aspect of sour and what we look at and what goes on. And then we got salt, okay? And you have to remember, there's a couple ways here, and when we talk about foods, and when we talk about taste, we're talking about salt. We know what salt tastes like. Okay, we don't know what sodium tastes like, and that's really what we're concerned about in the body, but we know what salt tastes like. One thing to keep in mind about salt is that humans have an acquired taste. The more you use, the longer you use it, the more it takes to taste the salt. If you add salt to your plate before you ever taste it, why? You don't know if it needs salt or not. It's habit. All right? If you add salt to something until you can taste it, you're overusing it. Okay? Salt is a flavor, in terms of taste, salt is a flavor enhancer. It brings out other flavonoid components in foods. So when you put salt in it, you salt something until you can taste the salt, you've gone too far. Okay? If you're a salt lover, I have a challenge for you. 3 days. 3 days. Don't salt anything. Eat low salt foods, put the salt shaker away. Then on day 4, you go back and add the same amount of salt you did prior to taking the challenge. Most people will find day 4 and day 5 is extremely salty. We develop the taste very quickly and we lose the taste very quickly. Okay, so you see that with salt. And then remember, the salt's added, salt's also naturally occurring. Some foods are higher in salt or higher in sodium, so they have a natural salt taste to them. And we adapt to that. A lot of animal proteins will have a salt or a sodium component to them versus plant products. And so that's part of the taste component that we see. And then, of course, on the back of the tongue, you've got bitter. Hops are bitter. I like beer. Okay. Hops give the bitterness to beer that we like. Okay. Brussels sprouts. How many of you like Brussels sprouts? How do you fix them? Bacon. Slice them in small little pieces, brown them in a little bit of bacon fat, and then serve them with bacon, or bake them, or slice them in little pieces and brown them in a little butter. What are you tasting? The Brussels sprouts, the bacon, or the butter? The bacon and the butter, yeah, okay. Or you can cook the Brussels sprouts and you get a bitterness from them. But if you like that in foods, they're good. I like Brussels sprouts, just however you fix them. Our middle son, our middle child, we used to serve Brussels sprouts at home, and we always told the kids, okay, you got to taste it if it's on your plate. And the kid was eating Brussels sprouts. We thought he was doing great until one day, Terry followed him in the bathroom after he came out of the bathroom, and he had Brussels sprouts for dinner, and they were floating in the stool. He was squirrel pocketing them, so that's always been a joke all this time with him and his little kids. So we look at this. Now, notice I got the little pink packet at the front and the back, sweet and low. Sweet and low is saccharin, right? Saccharin starts out, if you're using regular saccharin, starts out intensely sweet, and then after you swallow, without anything else in the mouth, it's got a little bitterness to it, all right? That's true of many artificial sweeteners. They're intensely sweet, but then after you swallow, you get a little bitterness in the back of your mouth. And that's why they always talk about aftertaste with artificial sweeteners. There are a few people in here my age, okay, or older, younger, but right in that 60 age bracket. You remember Tab? Tab was the first artificial cola beverage on the marketplace, put out by Coca-Cola. They used a product called cyclamate. Cyclamate is extremely bitter but intensely sweet. That was the bad aftertaste. Okay, then they moved from cyclamate to saccharin, and the taste, sweetness improved, but the bitterness was still there. Then they found out you could blend the two together and get rid of the bitterness. And now you can't use cyclamates at all because they're carcinogenic, right? But we have a lot of different things to choose from, and we'll hit some of those later on. So you've got sweet and sour, not only here with an artificial sweetener, but also with many food products. Tomatoes, a ripe tomato. It's got a very nice sweet taste to it. Not a sugary taste, but a sweet taste. But when you swallow it and it's the last thing you consume or the only thing you consume in a clean mouth, it's got a slight bitterness to it. It's not bitter like Brussels sprouts, but it's got a little bitterness to it. And that's all part of the taste process or the taste sensation. Okay, this is what we have always learned. And this is what we have always known until a few years ago. All right? Now we have umami, which is, you'll notice, blends of foods, meat products that are cooked, beef, poultry, chicken, pork, okay, vegetable dishes put together. Basically what that means is a blend of flavors that gives a textural coating similar to fat in the mouth. So it's a pleasing coating flavor that is there. It is not necessarily the fat, it's just the blend of the ingredients. And that's what we look at there. And that is sensed primarily in the middle of the tongue. And if you think about when you eat, you put something in your mouth and you chew on it, and it works back and forth in your tongue, between your teeth, and then before you get ready to swallow, tongue pushes up against the palate, rolls it up into a little ball, and you swallow it. That's why you get that pleasurable combination of sensations before you swallow. With that last mouthful of food, that's where that comes from in that process in what we see. So now what we've got though is change. Science tells us this, okay? The distribution, the true distribution of taste buds within the mouth. Notice they're not just on the sides, they're not just on the front, they're not just on the back. So what we tend to find is the intensity of the taste within a product falls a little bit back to what we used to think. If it's high in sodium, you're going to get that all throughout the mouth, but it's going to be a little bit more intense on the sides. That's really it. It's the fact is that you taste it all across the tongue, right? So it's not just this business, you know, if you're going to take something sour, you put it on the side of your tongue, or you put it in the back of your mouth real quick and swallow it, and you won't taste it. You're still going to taste the sour that's along with it. Okay? Or the bitterness in many medications that you taste is the bitterness in medications. Think real quick, I can pop them to the back of my mouth. Well, you get them in your mouth, and if they start to dissolve, you get that feeling all the way through your mouth. But so what we see is you can see the distribution is a little bit different. Science is wonderful, okay? We spend all this money to determine how we taste foods. For those of us who eat, it's not such a big deal. For the manufacturers, it's huge. How they're going to get us to taste something and what we're going to see in that process. Now, anybody have food allergy? What? Nuts. Okay, he cannot participate in what's in the bags. Okay, in terms of that process. There's a taste bag on everybody's table. Okay, somebody pick it up. Taste bag, taste bag, taste bag, taste bag. Okay. Don't open it. I didn't tell you to open it. Okay. It's a taste bag. Okay. Now you can open it. Do not look in it. Huh? You can open it, but don't look in it. Okay. Okay. The first sensation is taste. Now I promise you, reaching into these bags will not get your fingers squishy, sticky, dirty, slimy, or anything of that nature. Some people are very careful, you know. Okay, reach in, grab one thing that's in the bag, bring it out and look at it. No, look at it. Everybody can look at it, yeah. Okay, everybody can look at it. Everybody can get one. There's plenty. Yeah, everybody can get one. This time there's plenty for everybody to get one. Okay, in terms of what it is. What did you say?
They have like grass and boogers and
taste. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at it, all right, and I want you to tell your neighbor what you think it's going to taste like. Tell your neighbor what you think it's going to taste like.
I think that one might be what it's going to taste like. I think that's
Okay. Now, he could probably do those, just not that one. Okay. Everybody have an idea what it's going to taste like? Everybody have a glass of water? Take a drink of water first. You always, before you do tasting, you take a drink of water, swish around your mouth and swallow it. It cleans your palate a little bit. Beer does not work. You have to use water. Okay? But now, eat it. Did everybody's taste like you thought it was going to taste? No. So we understand taste is one of the senses, but it can be affected by what you see. Okay. Now in this case, they're going to be sweet. We know that. They're going to have a little sweetness to us. Some of them will have some sourness. Some of them will have some bitterness. Some may have something you can't even decide what it is. Okay. But that's taste. Okay. The sensation in the mouth. That's what you get with taste and what we see with taste. Okay. Now we have, that's the first of the senses we're going to look at. Now we're going to look at sight. Okay, and as I said before, I told my wife, I warned her, there's a picture in there. This is my wife. That's Terry in the background, my lovely assistant, my guiding principle in life. This year it'll be 40 years. 40 years, so yeah. You should applaud for her, let me tell you. I can vouch, 40 years with me is a rather interesting trip in life, okay, from that aspect. So sight, we're sitting in this little place where I ordered the crab, okay. So I just thought it was a nice picture, you know, from us, okay. Now, sight, what do we see? What do we find important with sight? These, okay, our eyes, and how we see things and what we put into effect and what we deal with in terms of sight and food products. What is that? Banana. What kind of banana? A ripe banana? How many of you think this is a ripe banana? Come on.
It's perfect.
Why is it perfect?
It's not brown, overly ripe.
It's actually underripe. It's how we choose to eat the food because of what we see. A ripe banana is what color? Brown to black. This is an underripe piece of fruit, so it's high in starch. It's not real sweet. Most of us cannot stand to eat really ripe bananas. If you can, if you do, they are sweet. Their texture is soft. Well, that happens in the ripening process. The point is, what we see is not always what food is meant to be at that point in time. It is good, so I'll hang on to that one. But we find that with a lot of fruits and vegetables. Okay, is color can be confusing in terms of how we look at certain things. So this is, it's not steak, brisket. Okay, barbecued brisket, you know, with French fries. Color didn't come out quite as good. Terry probably would not eat this, would you, dear? It's rather pink in the center, rather red in the center, so she'd probably pass that one by. But I think it's a beautiful picture of glazed meat, sliced, cooked to perfection, okay? My single most favorite meat product in the world, hot dogs. I love hot dogs. I don't care what they're made of. I don't care what other people think. I love hot dogs. There's no way you can fix them that I won't eat them, okay? In terms of that process. Put a little pickle relish on it. Pickle relish means, what is pickle relish? What's the pickle relish on that hot dog? What kind? Sweet. Sweet? It could be dill, it could be sour, it could be sweet. The picture. Okay, the picture can be a little bit confusing in terms of that process and what we see. And then we always got to have something helpful. Yeah, we always got to have something helpful that brings in the bright colors that we see in terms of food and why we choose those. There are things that lead us in that particular direction. So when we look at color, a lot of times it's the first thing we notice. You look at the banana and you notice it's yellow. Okay, whatever you ordered when it was put in front of you, I noticed my toast was light brown, my tomatoes were red, my bacon was bacon colored brown, okay. In terms of those process, Terry had macaroni and cheese and it was the right color, okay, from that process. So a lot of times it's the first thing we see. We eat with our eyes. Yeah, we make choices and selections with our eyes. We begin to associate colors to foods from shortly after birth. When you're a little kid, most infants, age 3 and under, the color orange, associate that with something sweet. What is it? It's the worst food in the world. No, close. Close. Sweet potatoes.
No, you're right. That's
Sweet.
Yes.
What's wrong with them? Now, this is really where you get into the science aspect of food. I'm serious. What's wrong with sweet potatoes? I hate them. Okay, that's it. That's my choice. Okay, that's my choice. I hate them. Now, I did make a sweet potato pie this year for Thanksgiving, so I have got to rephrase my statements a little bit. Sweet potatoes are okay in sweet potato pie, but by the time you add the eggs, the sugar, the milk, and the cream, I'm not so worried about sweet potatoes anymore, okay, from that process. So, you know, we look at colors. Colors equate to tastes and flavors. And I'll come back to this one here in a minute when we go through this. If you looked at your jelly beans, okay, not everybody's color of jelly bean create what they expected in terms of their taste. So were you disappointed or were you happy? You think about that. You know, if your jelly bean was black, what did you expect it to taste like?
Licorice.
Black licorice, okay? Did anybody have a black jelly bean? How many of you would have been disappointed if you had a black jelly bean? I would have been ecstatic. I love black jelly beans, okay? From that process, Grady's gonna look and see if there's any black jelly beans in the bag. So, okay, with that process and what we see. Colors and dyes in processing foods. Manufacturers use them to enhance, to change. Strawberry milk. Strawberry milk doesn't contain any real strawberry. It contains a chemical base that gives it a pink coloring, and it contains a chemical mix that gives it the flavor of strawberries. Okay, it's the cheapest way to make it. So that's how they make it in terms of that process. So we see that goes on. Okay, this is the food color wheel. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before, but they're really kind of cool. Okay, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the science of eating, but they're kind of cool. All right, because they tell you somewhat of the new things that people are looking at in food. They're not new. Lycopene in tomatoes. Okay, lycopene it's up there at the top. Agallic acid, quercetin, hepcidin, compounds in foods that have health benefits, but they're not vitamins and minerals. Known about them for years, but people started putting them all together in groups. So you can look at the science of color in foods by what health benefits that food's going to give you, and you can look at the science of color in foods by this. What do red foods mean? When you eat something that's red, or you pick something that's red, what are you looking for? Spice. Hot. Okay, that's the indication that goes along with red foods. They're seasoned well, they're spicy, they have red flavorings in them, okay, associated with danger. But remember, red is also passionate, okay? So some foods that are red have strong but subtle flavors. Okay, and some foods that are red bring us around to the fact that we're expecting heat. They're strongly favored foods, and we find them somewhat mild. Strawberries.
Red apples, though.
Red apples, okay? No, they're not spicy. They have a sweet taste to them, okay? It's the coloring that draws us to the product, is what we see.
I wanted to say that our preference for colors comes to us from our primate ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Colors we learned, and we've learned for years what colors mean. So,
It means right, is what it means.
which color?
Any color.
Depends on the food or the product.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
You're talking about like a primate evolution, right? You're talking
Yes, in terms of evolution. Right.
fruit as opposed to other.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, we find the use, and they tells us lots of things when we look at the process. White foods, usually associated with dairy, but you also think about white foods as being starchy foods. Okay, fit in with that. White foods also go with processed foods, tend to have more colors, more component. But remember, some white foods are spicy. Some white foods are bitter. How many of you like Verdelia onions? How many of you like onions, period? Sliced, thick, piece of sharp cheddar cheese right on top of them, and snack on them. Aren't they delicious? I got people looking at me like, yeah. People looking at me like, you're nuts, okay, from that process. But you got to remember, white foods, tear-inducing foods, you know, some of the anthocyanins and anthocyaxins and irons can do this. Garlic. How many of you like garlic? Cooked? Raw? In butter? Anyway, yeah. Horseradish. Yeah, okay. I like them all. So I told you, let's eat anything. But white foods, what they can do for you. Plain, strong, mild flavors, it can be a little bit conceiving when we see that. Purple and blue. Blue is calming. Blue foods help us relax. Okay? Purple foods have an aspect of strength, rich, full-bodied flavors to them. Eye is attracted to them. Okay, in terms of what we look at with foods. Now, blue also is interesting because blue now also means semi-sweet to sweet. And that has come about because of beverages. Not so much grapes, but sports drinks. Blue sports drinks. Blue sports drinks tend to have a sweeter taste to people, even though they don't contain any more sugar than any other color. But they tend to have a sweeter, more relaxing taste to people simply because of the color. Okay, when you look at that process and what we see, okay, orange, smooth texture, joy, sunshine, pleasurable, tropical, sweet is what orange tends to bring more. Juicy tends to bring those components and those aspects in there and what we see. Yellow, it's like the banana, it's supposed to make you happy. Yellow foods often taste sweet, okay, but have a little bit of tartness and sour to them. Okay, it's kind of hard to put it all together, right? But it's amazing when you get the blend of foods. And of course, then you got green. Green's the color of nature, so it means fresh. If you get a salad, you look to see that the greens are bright in color. Okay, so it's an indication of freshness in terms of what you see with freshness. Earthy flavors, somewhat acidic depending upon the type of greens that you would put in it. Okay, greens can also indicate doneness. Green beans, when they're done, they should be what color? They should be green, not olive green or gray. I also found pickled green beans in Louisiana this trip. I have a new favorite. It's like eating pickled jalapenos, okay? So they were pretty good too in terms of that. But in other words, colors bring a lot. It's how we identify foods. It gives us something to expect in the foods and what we see, okay? So let's see, what were the other two bags? I forgot. Oh, touch. Oh, smell, we're not there yet. Okay, what is this? It's what? Okay, what is it? Nobody has spoken loud enough yet. What is it? It's a face. It's an Eskimo. Okay, you see both pieces there? You see the face, the nose, or the elbow? Okay, perception. Color in foods is perception. What you perceive, that color is going to bring to you in foods. And that's all this says, is this is perception. It's how you look at it, okay, as to what it gives you in that process. This is also something that goes along, okay? Part of what we see with what affects our choices. How many of you remember the 8-ounce bottle of Coke? Yeah, they're bringing it back, okay? But originally, that's all there was an 8-ounce bottle of Coke, okay? Now, the standard bottle's 20 ounces, okay? How many of you remember the 10-to-1 hamburger patty? That's what Sandy's, McDonald's, Burger King, all of them started out. They got 10 hamburger patties out of a pound of meat. 1.6 ounces per hamburger patty. They smashed them flat, and they were about as thick as the pickle that was on them. Okay. I know, I worked in one of those places for years. Okay, now the standard hamburger, when you ask people, what's the standard hamburger you purchase at McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's? Quarter pounder. Okay, we've seen that much increase over time. Okay, as far as it goes. And I remember the 3-inch bagel. I was appalled the first time somebody sold me a big bagel, and I said, man, that's big, and that's all we got. Bagels used to be little, okay? Serving sizes used to be little. Serving sizes have grown as we have gotten into looking at them, looking at how much they fill a plate, looking at what we see. The tub of popcorn is not so bad. What is?
Butter.
It's all the butter you put on top of the popcorn. popcorn that goes in the process. But just to point what's grown in this and what we get accustomed to seeing as portion sizes and how they fit in the process. Okay, hearing. Now, this is a little audience participation in this process that we go along with hearing. My wife, my assistant, is going to do some things, and I want you to listen and see if you can identify what she's doing. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead. Anybody?
M&M's in a bowl.
M&M's? No.
Coffee beans.
Coffee beans? No.
Popcorn.
Popcorn. Very good. Popcorn. Who said pop? You said popcorn.
Yeah, I said popcorn.
Popcorn. Okay. All right. Now, you ready for the next one? She's hiding behind the screen. Oh, do it again. Listen closely. What?
Take a bite of something?
Yeah, we can't. That one's hard to hear, Terry. We can't quite hear that one. She took a bite out of an apple. Okay. Yeah, and then she was chewing the apple. Sounds. Yeah, I think pretty much everybody got that one. Was the can of pop or carbonated beverage. That's can of beer. Sorry, they said no beer, no alcoholic beverages. So it's Diet Coke. Wait a minute there till we get there. Okay, or my phone opener. That's mine's Papa Top. Okay. Okay, you ready? Next one. Did you hear it? I did. Do it again. Do it again. Broke a piece of celery. Crisp celery. Vegetarian. Okay. Yeah. That tells. The point is, are we done? Was that it? One more. Oh, she's got one more. I couldn't remember how many we created.
Oh, that's potato chips.
Okay, we have a volunteer. Here. I want you to go stand with your back to the whiteboard. She said potato chips. Okay, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take a whiff. Take a whiff.
They smell like a Cheeto.
Cheetos. Okay, 2 points. Very good. You can have the rest of them. Okay. Point is, we get accustomed to the sounds we hear. The fresh cracking of celery. That's how we tell that it's fresh. Versus a piece of celery you leave too long in the refrigerator that's rubbery. The bite of an apple, when you hear those things. The rustle of the bag of chips, okay? You sit down and the person is in the kitchen and you're sitting in the living room watching TV, and what do you hear? You hear the bag of chips, okay? You hear the crackers. Sounds drive us to make selections in foods. Sounds are used to judge quality in foods and what we see. So all the different things that you can hear. Peanut brittle, the crunch of peanut brittle. You know, that's an amazing piece that goes on with that. We've got celery, nuts, crackers, chips. These are pork rinds. Yeah. Okay, and the freshness that they can be. We're going to share what's in the bowl. The rest of the bag goes home with me. Okay. As the point is, hot dogs are my favorite meat product. Cheetos are my favorite snack food. Okay. Bag of Cheetos and a cold glass of whole milk. Now, look, I didn't say anything about what you guys chose to eat, did I? But you commented on what I choose to eat, you know, based upon your likes and dislikes, is what we do with that product. Oh, what's that? Popcorn. Pretty soon it'll be the smell of popcorn. Okay, that goes home with us too. Sorry. Okay, from that in terms of what we see. So it's that aspect of smell. Okay, touch. Touching foods. A lot of things you can tell. Yeah. There's a lot of things you can tell about the touch of food, whether it's right. Okay, exactly what it is. We have a bag that says touch. Okay, everybody grab their touch bag. Don't open it. Anybody else want another touch bag? I got one. Okay. Now, only one person gets to participate. Don't open it yet. Only one person gets to participate in this. Okay? Go ahead and open them. You're going to identify what's in the bag by touching it. In the bag. You can put your hand in the bag. Don't take it out. Don't look at it. Don't take it out. Don't look at it. Identify what it is. Don't look. Don't look. Anybody have a guess? Marshmallows. Okay. What size of marshmallows? Big marshmallows. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The fact is that you touched it. You knew what it was. Okay, from that process. So touch tells us a lot of things, and there's two ways we can touch. We can touch with our fingers, okay? We can also touch with our tongues, okay? So it's different ways to sense. Gross, oh, that's just an avocado. You're lucky I didn't put an avocado in a bag to squeeze, did I? Okay, you know why I didn't? They're expensive, yeah. That's why we didn't put avocados in a bag, because they're too expensive. And after you guys squeezed them all, I would not take them home and make dip out of them, you know, from that process. So we've got touch, and then we've got taste on our tongue. How many of you lick the cookie bowl? Lick the spatula? How many of you lick the cookie bowl or the spatula if you used raw egg?
Oh, yeah.
How many of you should lick the cookie bowl and the spatula if you used raw egg? You should all put your hands down, okay? If you're using raw eggs, you should put your hands down and get pasteurized processed egg products, okay, from that. So we've got touch and what we can see with touch. One last little bag here. Smell. Who has not participated on your tables? No, not you. Okay, open the bag, but do not look inside. Take a whiff. What is it? Anybody got it figured out? What is it?
I really smell different.
It probably smells like brown paper bag, but that's not what it is. Huh? Peanuts. Peanuts, just peanuts. Okay, in terms of what's in the bag. Distinctive taste. You can tell when the person beside you is eating peanuts because you smell them. Okay? They're good dry roasted peanuts if you want to take some out and eat them. Okay? But you know, in terms of that process, what we smell. Okay, now we'll put a little bit more of the true science into this process. Okay? And we're going to talk about how you smell. Right? Well, talk about how you smell odors. We'll put it there in that way. Olfactory senses. Nerve, okay? Stimulated by the odors and the smells that are around us. Okay? And you do that breathing it in through your nose. But did you realize plugging your nose does not always stop you from smelling foods? Okay? It's not always through the nose. Okay? It's also through the mouth. Still approaches the olfactory perception senses. It just takes longer and it is less intense. So when you put something in your mouth to chew it, you release some of those odor components, those flavonoids that are there that give us taste and odor in terms of that process. So it's still more difficult to smell when you have a cold, all right? Because it affects the nerve, it affects your sinus passages, but you can still smell somewhat through the mouth and through the process. Now, food manufacturers know this. And food manufacturers also know that we want people to smell things because it's like the popcorn. You go to a basketball game or an event, and you're not hungry for popcorn until you smell the popcorn. Okay? And it's those odors and those things get in. So they look for the chemical formulas. In other words, the chemical signature. That smell you got in peanuts was this. Okay? Chemists. Do we have a chemist in the room?
Bio.
Can you read that?
Alpha-pyrazone, like 2,3-dimethylpyrazine, and 2,6-dimethylpyrazine.
Sounds good to me. Okay, that is the aroma of roasted peanuts. That's what you smell. Every smell has a chemical formula that they can replicate. Okay, I did not put this one, sliced green peppers, in your bags because I figured I had enough little audience participation things. But green peppers have their own unique pepper scent. They also have a hint of sweetness to them if they're right. Okay, they develop a hint of sweetness in the smell, and that is in part some of the alcohol base that's there. So we look at the process of smelling and what it brings to us in food and how it fits. Now, that's the senses, all right? That's how you apply your senses. What time is it? 7:45. Are we done, or you want me to go on?
Keep going.
I'm easily agreeable. Okay, now we're going to shift gears then. A little bit of shifting gears in science. Okay, 2, why do you choose the food things or the food choices that you do? Give me a reason. Why do you choose what you choose to eat? You cannot use what I just went through.
Partially because of my parents and what I was raised on.
Okay, your parents, your culture. Your culture. People around here eat mountain oysters. Right? If you're from around here, you'll eat mountain oysters. We lived in eastern Kentucky for a couple of years.
Out by Winchester.
Moorhead. Okay? They thought I was nuts. Because, huh? Oh, yeah, well, it's true. Okay. They thought I was nuts because I had a girl in one of my classes that came in one day and she said, Mr. McNeil, I'm going to miss 2 days of class this week. And I said, okay, why? And she said, well, I got to go home and help my dad castrate. They raised hogs. And I said, really? She kind of looked at me just like you guys are looking at me. I said, what do you do with the testicles? Well, we throw them, feed them to the dogs. And I said, would you throw them in a bucket and bring them back and let me have them? I said, freeze them before you bring them back. And she did, didn't she? She sent back a whole bunch of them. We cleaned them, fried them, and ate them. When she graduated, the only thing her dad wanted to do was meet me. He came up and he said, Mr. McNeil, I just have to meet a guy who would eat testicles. And I said, well, we do that all the time at home. You guys eat head cheese. Okay, now that's not overly appealing to us, you know, and there are chitlins and tripe, which aren't bad, but, you know, it's different. And so, you know, that's my story, okay, from that process. So your background, your culture, why else?
Money.
Make them taste differently.
Okay, say it louder.
Different genes will make you taste differently.
The microbiome tells us more and more and more about how our genes respond to foods and tastes. So we know that everybody has some individual things that go on in there. How else? Why else? Come on. Why do you eat what you eat?
The events going on in your life, comfort food.
But comfort foods. I also heard money. Okay? How much you know about nutrition or how much you think you know about nutrition plays into that.
Fads.
What?
Fads.
Fads. Fads. Yeah, in terms of that, what we see. There we go. Likes and dislikes. Only food you can't eat, sweet potatoes. Because I don't like them. Peanut butter. How many of you like peanut butter? How many of you like peanut butter and bread? How'd you like to live on that for 2 weeks out of a month?
Done it.
Done it, yeah. Okay, I did that before I met her. You know, I had to make the car payment, the rent payment, the beer payment, the entertainment payment, all those things when I was in college, okay, from that process of what we see. Your education. You realize the further you go in the educational system, whether it's the formal or in essence informal educational system, the more educated we become, the broader your palate becomes. The more likely you are to try new and different foods and experiment with foods. Okay, because it gets us out and we meet other people. And we hear things and we travel. Some people travel, okay? I'm content to remain in Hayes, okay? Made our first out of the United States trip, right? I'm looking at her. Where else did we go?
Alaska's in the United States.
Yeah, but we stopped in Canada. See, that was my first and only out-of-the-state trips that I have planned, unless I can get her on a motorcycle for 2 months. I don't think that's going to happen. So for that process.
Where you live too, because certain foods are more available in certain areas.
Right. East and West Coast, produce, seafood. Here, beef, pork. Okay, in terms of what we see, yeah, our environments, our local environments. in terms of what we see with foods and how we fit that in. Our culture that fits in. People in this part of the country grew up on meat and potatoes. If you go live in different parts of the country, it's seafood and salads. It's just what's available in your locale that helps us make those choices. Peer influence. I will tell this story until I can tell it no more. We have our oldest child is a daughter. Before she went to school, she liked liver because she didn't know what she was eating. She went to school and they served liver, and everybody around her said, "How can you eat that?" She will no longer eat liver, and she's 35, 36, okay? She won't eat liver anymore, okay? How many of you like liver? Yeah, okay. Fried, done with onions, brown gravy, baked, mashed potatoes and gravy. Not good for you? Oh, I think it is. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Your opinion versus mine, so.
Oh, no, I ate liver once before a blood test.
Oh.
Cholesterol was also true.
Now, it is high in cholesterol. I'll give you that, okay, for that process. So we look at that. Now, 3 things that fit into this. Hunger. Hunger is physiological. How do you know when you're hungry?
Stomach tells me so.
Your stomach tells you so? What else? You get weak. You get weak because your blood sugar drops. So you got to replenish it so you know you're hungry. How else? Irritable. That's me. Okay. Angry. Okay. Physical signs tell you, in essence, that your blood sugar is dropping and it's time to replenish. Okay. That's hunger. It's physical. Then we have appetite, which is psychological. That's where the business of all of the taste, texture, flavor comes into manufacturing, convincing us we need to eat, okay? The fact is that if we think about the Dairy Queen commercial that's on television, okay, and close your eyes, think about Dairy Queen, okay, and think about a mountain of chocolate with the Dairy Queen emblem on it, and a river of hot fudge running along the bottom of the mountain, okay, and then you hear this, and a piece of chocolate tumbles bang, 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 down into the river of hot fudge. And then the river of hot fudge moves between the Dairy Queen cones. The cones with the ice cream and the curl on top of the steam rises. Anybody want to go to Dairy Queen? You just ate. Okay. Selling stock. Yeah. Perkins did a great commercial. They were having problems, so they came out. They started with their pancakes. They went to their all they did was they panned the camera across their food. And the only thing that played was Perkins' song in the background, and at the end of the commercial, "We love Perkins." Ching, 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 ching. People started going to Perkins. Okay? Pepsi. Terry did the Pop Top. You remember when Pepsi, or 7-Up, I'm sorry. 7-Up came out as the Uncola in the early 70s. They put a cola glass upside down in the middle of the TV screen, filled it. You could hear just white background, upside down cola glass. You heard the ice dropping into the glass, clink, 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 clink. You heard the clink, 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 clink. Clink, the bottle sits down. Pepsi, or sorry, 7-Up, there with the emblem. Guy picks it up. You hear him drink the glass. He sets it down and he goes, 7-Up. Flopped on television. 7-Up went in a hole so bad. 2 years later, some marketing guy goes, "Let's put it on the radio." Whew. Best-selling commercial 7-Up ever had. Everybody remembered that sound, the ice, that it was 7-Up. And they do that to us all the time. They sell and they market things like that to us to fit into that. Then we have satiety or satiety. If hunger and appetite work together, we should be satisfied and not eat anymore. But appetite tends to get in the way. It's like my bag of Cheetos and a glass of milk. I can eat those anytime. Don't need to be hungry to eat those products. Why do we pick the things we eat? Go back to the things that were brought out before. Emotional state. Is there a food that determines or tells you that somebody loves you? Chocolate? What kind of chocolate? Any kind of chocolate? Okay. Anybody have a particular food? Butterscotch oatmeal cookies. Okay, my mother made those and sent them to me when I was in college. The smell, the aroma, okay, of those. Hate. Now, hate and anger, you ever watch somebody eat when they're mad? It is cool to watch them eat when they're mad. They attack the plate. They chew the food. They chomp on the food. They're getting rid of that anger. It's the same thing. You ever watch somebody chew gum when they're nervous, upset, or angry? You know, it makes your jaw hurt to watch them. Food does that for us. And then, of course, how many of you walk by the kitchen and automatically stop in front of the refrigerator? Then you open the refrigerator and you think, what am I doing here? Okay, I just ate. All right, from that process. Boredom drives us to food. Food's comfort. You know, we like it. Emotional state. Oh yeah, there's another picture. What is that? It's a guy playing a saxophone or it's a young lady. Okay, perception. Okay, in terms of what you see. Love, okay, social factors. Social factor tonight, you came and ate. Okay, you ever go to a party and you sit down or you watch someone and they sit down and there's a bowl of nuts or there's a bowl of snack mix or something there, and whether it's you or somebody else, you're talking to people and you're eating a bowl of snack mix and going on, pretty soon you hear this. And you look and the bowl's empty. And it's kind of what, who ate all that? You know? So, you know, we think about social factors and what we see. Environment. How many of you eat by the clock? 5:30, 6 o'clock, you got to eat. My dad was one of those. He ate by the clock. He was not hungry until 6:15. Then at 6:15 he was hungry. So we ate at 6:15, okay, from that process. So we run into that environment, time and temperature. Temperature factor. It's going to get cold out. What do we have a tendency to do in the wintertime?
Soup, chili.
Soup, chili. We eat warm foods. We also have a tendency to eat more because it's cold out. And here comes our genetic heritage. Need a little more fuel that fits into that process. I mean, you can go on with all of these things. Your religious beliefs. How many of you are mackerel snappers? How many of you are mackerel snappers? Well, Catholics. How many of you are Catholics? Did you ever heard that term? Yeah, they used to call us mackerel snappers because we wouldn't eat meat on Friday. Okay? So everybody's got one of those terms. I never thought it was derogatory. I always thought it was kind of cool. Separated me from everybody else. Okay? With that process and what we see. And then, of course, we always dangle the carrot. What are we going to come up with next? What's going to affect us next in what we eat? So we look at what's in our food. What do we eat? Well, two things. Ingredients and additives. That's what you eat. Food. Ingredients and additives. Ingredients. Something. You had, everything you had tonight, one way or another, was made with a recipe. Everything in it was an ingredient. Okay, so we eat ingredients. Which are the foods that we consume? We think about them as ingredients and how we put them together to get the flavors and the colors and the textures that we like. Okay, from that process. The ingredient list. Everything has an ingredient list on it. First ingredient listed is the greatest amount in the package. And it goes down from there. So if you ever want to know what you're eating, just read the ingredient list and it tells you first to last in terms of concentration within the package. That's all you've got to remember about that process, okay? It tells you what's there. And sometimes, now, this is going to change a little bit, listed collectively. Used to be they could list sugar, sucrose, fructose, high fructose corn sweetener, each individually on the label. Now what they're going to have to do is list sugar and then put all of those in parentheses. So you may start to see sugar as the first ingredient on some of your favorite foods that you never thought of before. Because now they have to put it there first and then put all the different kinds. There's like 30 different kinds of sugar out there. Manufacturer gets to put it in the product under the label in which they buy it. So if they buy sugar, which is sucrose, they add it as sugar. If they buy a bag of sucrose, they add it as sucrose. That's how they could change the values in those products. They're doing away with that part in the new label, which was supposed to become effective in 2015, then in 2018, and now it's 2019. It's moving it back a little bit, okay, in terms of what goes on. How many ingredients Okay? This may be more than you want to know. I got maybe 3 more slides left and then we'll quit. Okay. How many ingredients? Little list called EFAS. Okay? Everything added to food in the United States. All right? You can go to the FDA and look at this, or the U.S. Department of Agriculture, look at it if you want. What's on it? Okay? Over 2,000 different types of substances that fit into that process. Okay? Can be considered ingredients. We don't think about that much when we go to put our foods together. Every seasoning, every spice, everything fits onto this particular list. And this is only partial because this doesn't include the GRAS list, which is generally recognized as safe. Okay? The GRAS list actually contains around 700 items. Okay? By the time you get down to it. And the thing about the GRAS list is that items come and go. At one time, saccharin was on it, then they took saccharin off. Now saccharin is back on it. Okay, that's generally recognized as safe, okay, in terms of that process and what we see. So we already know we got over 2,700 items. It gets even worse when you start adding colors to the products. Then we got additives. Anything you put in there. Okay, and when you look at additives, you got to remember this, something that's may be a food or may not be a food, but it's consumed as part of the food. When you look at additives and what you see, okay, there's somewhere around 4,800 different additives when you put it together. Notice 1,800 different colors that are out there that they can add to food products. I don't know what you do with more than 5, you know, okay, in terms of that process, but they're there. So what we eat, there's a lot of things that what we eat that go into why we eat the different things. There's 2 kinds of additives that you deal with. I always like this part. They're either direct or indirect additives. Direct additives are put there, and they're put there for a reason. Maybe it's leavening, maybe it's color. Indirect additives can get in there in any way. I used to work for a company, it was a product recall company. It was kind of a side job. And I'd get a call and they'd say, you need to go to Phillipsburg, Kansas and pick up a can of green beans. So I go up to Phillipsburg, Kansas, I pick up a can of green beans. Right there in the can of green beans is this big old grasshopper. Okay? That is a indirect additive. Okay? He got in there and he shouldn't have been in there. Metal, shavings, things like that. Every once in a while you hear about those things that get in there. You do realize that in all of your milled products, all your processed food products, you are eating insect parts. Okay? They do allow a certain percentage, parts per million of insect parts. And if you've ever been to a grain mill, you can see why. It's just impossible to keep them out. Okay, in some of those processes. So we have all these different additives that we can put in these products and what they can do. Some of them are natural, some of them are synthetic, and how they fit into the process. So, what we want to do, think about this. You as an average American consume 139 pounds of food additives a year. 139 pounds of additives. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, but it's part of our food processing that fits into those categories in what we do. The 93% of them, sugar, salt, corn syrup, and dextrose. Actually, sugar and salt. Okay, that's what most of them are. Sugar is amazing. It's sweet, it browns, it adds volume, it tenderizes, it does all of those things, not just make things sweet. Okay, salt is very important too. If you don't believe me, try to make salt-free bread sometime from scratch. The salt competes with water in the flour and allows you to manipulate, hydrate the gluten, and develop the protein matrix in it. Without the salt, you get this gooey mess, and it's really hard to work with. Okay, and besides, it doesn't taste very good. Okay, personal opinion. All right, from that process. Okay, spices and sugars, and there's a couple more main reasons of food additives. Okay, enrichment. Enrichment means to put back. Cereals are enriched. When they mill to make a processed cereal, they take away the bran, they take away the endosperm, they take away the bran, the germ, and the hull from the endosperm, so all you have left is starch. There go the vitamin and the minerals. Enrichment means they have to put those back. That's what the enrichment process means. So eating enriched breads nutritionally is about like eating whole wheat bread. So we enrich cereals. Fact is, we make many of our cereals like a multivitamin pill. Okay? Fortification means to add to increase the nutritional value. Morton's salt in the blue container is iodized salt. Iodized salt is where the majority of people get their iodine in their diet. Okay? Got rid of goiter. Right? You know, if you go back to World War I, that was a huge issue. Iodized salt goes away. Okay? You could buy non-iodized salt. You buy Morton in the red product, red package. Okay, sea salt's not iodized, but it can be. Naturally, it's not. Yeah, the difference between sea salt and regular salt is the crystal size. That's really all it is. It's salts, sodium chloride. Okay, in terms of what we see. Processing and preparation, what you find in this one, a lot of different things. Okay, emulsifiers, sure gel, pectin. We got any jelly makers, jam makers? You add pectin to things to thicken them. Okay, in terms of that process and what we see and how it goes on. Potato starch, okay, magnesium carbonate is stabilizers. Add a little bit to salt so it doesn't all clump up and get hard. We use a lot of things to do these. You know, yeast, baking powder, cream of tartar, acids, all of these different things. These are additives, but at the same point in time, they're ingredients. So all I'm trying to get at is that particular point. Palatability and wholesomeness, okay. There's a little thing out there you can go and if you really want to know what's happening in the food world these days, do a search for, now I'm going to go blank. Okay, I'll come back to that. But what you find with these different types of products that you find, do a search for foodborne illness, USDA.gov. It'll take you to a daily release of what restaurants had salmonella, what listeria outbreaks are, everything that's going on. Okay, gives you a daily break, daily one. So I read it every morning. Okay, and I used to read it every morning right before I went into class, so I could tell my students, okay, who's got an outbreak today? You know, it was fun on my part, but it's interesting to see how they track those things. It's amazing how they track those things. And to make food more appealing, colors. I always thought this was cool. You can buy Kellogg's Nutri-Grain brands. You can buy them in the United States, and notice what they use to make strawberry ones red. They use red dye number 40, yellow dye number 6, and blue dye number 1. That's how they make the filling red in these in the United States. Look what they use in Britain. Beetroot, anitetto, paprika extract. Natural versus synthetic to get colors. Just difference in the product because of different laws within different countries. Same product, different flavoring. Okay? Natural oils, natural flavors that you find, and then flavor enhancers. MSG. Anybody use MSG? Monosodium glutamate. It really enhances the flavor of a product. But so does equal. One of the first uses for aspartame was not as a sweetener, but as a flavor enhancer. And if you got a little equal around sometime, you fix a can of green beans or frozen vegetables, just take a pinch of it. After you cook the vegetables, sprinkle it on top and stir it in. It won't make them taste sweet. It'll draw out the natural flavors of the foods. Okay? But it's, I mean, that's what it does. It was just sort of discovered that it's protein complex that makes things taste sweet too from that process. So, lots of different colors that are out there, things that they can use to make things appear great to us. You know, whether they're natural or they're synthetic, they give us the colors. Pickled beets, the red that comes from pickled beets. Pickled beets, you know, are beets red? Are beets bright red when you go to slice them and cook them? Are they the same red that you get from pickled beets, which is made with orange? Differences. How many of you like maraschino cherries? Okay, real maraschino cherries are what color? They're a greenish color. We like the red color in our drinks and beverages. It's like a pigments added to them. That was just part of the process. They're kind of green and then they start to turn a brownish red. But that nice bright red is through a chemical process used to enhance and sell the products in terms of what we see. So a lot of different things that are out there, but thanks for listening. Appreciate it.